Hey everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today we're talking with Mike Montague, founder of Avenue 9 and Human First AI Marketing, a practical, people-centered approach that blends smart AI tools with smarter marketing strategy. He helps small businesses scale without burning bridges or needing huge budgets. I'm super excited because obviously AI can help us automate a lot of things, but it certainly doesn't replace people. So learning how to use it effectively is vital. So with that, welcome, Mike. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Brett, great to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation. The show is right up my alley. It's basically what I've been trying to do since I was in high school. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you have a fascinating background. You've done a lot of different things, and I definitely want to touch on all that. Before we jump into all of it, I'd love to start with your personal story. Can you share with us a little bit about your background, how you started your career?
Sure. I love this question because my mom won a computer and a radio station contest in 1986, which sounds like a weird place to start the story, but it sums up all three threads of my life. In 1986, there were not computer programs. So in order for me to play with this computer as a 7-year old, I had to learn how to program it. And so that's what I did. And I've always kind of been tech forward and nerdy. That's a big theme of my career. The other one is I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be on the radio. I thought the radio was where it's at, and this is a super fun thing to do. Be able to play good songs, give away computers, and have a blast entertaining people. And it's way cooler than being a computer nerd stuck in a room by yourself all day. The third thing, though, is that this was a sales and marketing promotion for the Apple IIc computer. And so my dad was a sales trainer, and he got into the Sandler sales training franchise when I was in high school. And so I don't know too many people that took their first professional sales training course at 16 years old as a junior in high school. But sales and marketing have always been weaved throughout my career as well. And the rest of them all just kind of follow one of those paths. I either do more entertaining, or I do more sales and marketing, or I do more technology, depending on what's needed. But it all came together with my own advertising agency here, where I get to market, do podcasts like this about marketing, and learn how to use AI and technology for our business.
Oh, that's awesome. So you were a sales trainer for quite a bit of time. What led you to, I mean, obviously AI became big and it's pretty hard to sort of ignore, but what led you to want to focus on that? Was it the potential of it, or was it just the fact that because you love technology, you were like, "Oh, I've got to dig into this too and figure out how to use this."
I think it was the transformational moment. This has happened kind of three times in my career already. The first one were websites. I learned how to build websites in high school, and e-commerce was taking off. One of the places where I got my baseball bats and sporting goods and stuff was this small mom and pop uh, pro athlete is what it was called. It's kind of sports shop in a strip mall by like 2 blocks from my house. They bought justbats.com and started selling baseball bats online in the early 2000s and became the world's largest seller of bats. They now have a huge campus where they have indoor like sports courts and footballs and batting cages, and they have a whole YouTube creation team and all kinds of stuff. It's an incredible business. And I kind of saw that as like, wow, this is possible. This internet revolution is a big deal. When social media came out, I happened to be on the radio. And so I saw other people writing books about social media marketing, and it was all like, get a bunch of followers, join 50 groups on LinkedIn, post about stuff, and someday somebody will buy from you. And I wanted to figure out, how do we actually use it? So I wrote a book that got picked up by LinkedIn themselves called LinkedIn the Sandler Way. And it was all about understanding the social media revolution. How does technology play into sales and marketing. And then when AI hit 2 years ago, my job was mostly content marketing at that point. I was kind of doing thought leadership for Sandler. So webinars, right, ghostwriting books, podcasts, writing blogs, writing for Forbes, writing for any kind of publication we needed. And when I realized what AI could do, I was like, whoa, I could do this in a tenth of the time. I might as well try and do it for 9 more companies and make 10 times the amount of money. And that's really what spurred me to jump. But it was understanding that this was the next wave of my career, that AI really changes everything. And I wanted to be all in on this opportunity. And Sandler was an amazing opportunity for me. It's an international organization, over 200 locations and 27 countries, 17 languages that I was the head coach for. So I was coaching a team of coaches that coached the other 400 trainers. But it was going to be kind of too big to move and take advantage of this AI thing the way that I wanted to dive into. So that's when I knew, I was like, oh, I got to do this for myself, because I want to make the most of this opportunity for myself as an entrepreneur.
That's cool, and it makes I mean, it makes total sense, but it's always fascinating to see the journey from where you start or, where you are to where you end up. For me, one of the interesting things is when you're talking about all this sort of pre-internet. So I had a brick and mortar business after I graduated college, and we built custom configured PCs. I'm also an
Nice.
admitted IT nerd. Really love technology, always did. Love to tinker, take things apart. Don't tell anybody in the legal field, but I modded my Xbox all by myself. I did all these other things. I got the soldering
Awesome.
iron, and yeah, so I loved all that kind of stuff. So actually, the way that came about was I had a friend who wanted to buy a computer. And he said there are these fairs that travel around to like local high schools with all these people that sell components. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Will you come with me, help me buy the right components so I can build a good computer? I did that. I saw that I was able to put together all the components way less than all the retail big box guys were selling. So I said, well, geez, I could make this into a business. So when we started to do it, we were literally there. You couldn't advertise on the internet yet. E-com stuff was all brand new. This was late 90s.
Yeah.
So what happened was we were advertising in the back of PC Magazine, Computer Shopper, like stuff like that in like real magazines that you buy off the shelf. And we had our first website where you could actually buy from the website, eventually after that. But it was fascinating to me to see how it was evolving. And then I ended up moving in another direction. I saw the companies got smart. They started getting better with their just-in-time inventory. Their costs were coming down. Like reading the writing on the wall. I'm a little guy. We're only doing a couple million in sales a year. I'm not going to be able to sustain this. So
Yeah.
I went in the corporate world for a while, but once the internet stuff really took off and the digital marketing really, I got fascinated with that again because I said I love the idea of coming from a brick and mortar background, how little overhead is involved, how you don't
Yeah.
need staff, you don't need employees, you don't need office space, you don't need you know five and ten and $15,000 ads in the back of magazines to be able to get traffic and generate sales. And I thought, wow, this is really fascinating. And now, obviously, with AI, you have another whole evolution where we're making everything even simpler again. And so it's fascinating the speed that things move at. The challenge, I guess, is to figure out how to implement it and use it in the way where it's beneficial and helps, and you're not just using it for the sake of using it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I have several frameworks we can jump into to talk about that. The problem I articulate first is that if everybody has the same tools, what I think is obvious to us now, looking back 20 25 years, is that like, oh, it seemed so easy to win by, like, all you had to do was build the website and nobody else had websites, or all you had to do was be the first one on social media or on Google Ads, and it was a great deal. The problem is now everybody has a website, everybody knows about Google Ads, everybody's heard about AI, and everybody has the same access to the tools. So one of the other reasons I decided to jump and do this is that I think small businesses can now compete, especially medium-sized businesses, I'll say, with the big dogs. That you were looking at those other competitors and saying, look, I don't have their money, I don't have the resources, I don't have their marketing budget, there's no way I'm going to compete. But now you can make a high quality video commercial, you can make anything you want, you can write a book, you can make a course, you can, you can't outspend them on ads, but you can beat them to AI answer results where there's not ads, and you can build an audience and do other things to compete in a marketing world that they really can't do anymore. And especially when we're talking about pivoting quickly with AI. So I saw this tremendous opportunity of like coming to the middle. I think micro businesses and startups, it's still going to be hard. You need resources. You're going to have to dig in here yourself. You're going to have to figure it out and just grind to get to a certain amount of middle. But it's also easier than ever before to get
Yeah.
to get that website built, to get the social pages, get them filled out with content and write blogs and send emails and build a list. But it's also going to be kind of harder than ever to break through to that next level. But the medium-sized businesses, the ones with resources but can still pivot, the ones that can use AI to amplify what they were already doing to win, that's where I saw the real leverage. I was like, oh, there's companies $1 to $10 million, maybe even up to 30 or 100 that could just crush it if they knew what they were doing, and they could do 10 times better marketing for a tenth of the cost.
Which is obviously both powerful and super attractive at the same time. So digging in on the AI side of things, there are people just stepping back from it and looking at it from the perspective from the outside going in. If you're not somebody who's already in there, there are people that think AI is the answer to every business challenge, and there are people
Right.
that think they're terrified of it. I don't want to replace my company with robots and everything else. What's a healthy way to frame the role of AI in business?
I think about this as the Iron Man analogy. Have you heard that one yet?
No.
So, a lot of people think of AI as this autonomous artificial intelligence, that what they're trying to do is build these systems that are like Terminator robots. Like, I'm going to go just set up my customer prospecting agent, and it's going to go out there and it's going to find leads, destroy them, bring them back to the business, and it's just going to automate that, and I never have to do it again. There's lots of problems with that, and I don't think anybody would pick the Terminator universe as the future we hope we end up in, but it doesn't really scale. If everybody creates an AI spam bot, then we have to put things in place to block them because it's going to be overrun. The other way to think about it is Iron Man from the Marvel movies and comic books. That's Tony Stark, a human with intelligence, creativity, a sense of humor, who wraps himself in technology and has Jarvis AI in his ear telling him things he wouldn't otherwise be aware of as a human. And it makes Tony Stark the superhero rather than outsourcing it to another robot that does the job. And so when I think about being human first, especially in our marketing, I think about putting the customer first, figuring out really who we serve and what could AI teach us about our customers that we wouldn't otherwise know, with predictive analytics, machine learning, even just generative AI research on ChatGPT, analyzing our phone calls and our transcripts with them to understand what we missed in the conversation or how we could get better. I think about putting our employees first. How do we get the dumb stuff that they're doing that is not their job out of the way so that they can do the human parts of the job? And I use a couple of examples here, but one is there's jobs humans clearly should not be doing, like hazardous mining or bomb disposal. Probably better to have a robot do that than a human, right? The other thing, though, is like salespeople spend over 70% of their time doing things that are not talking to the customer. So that's bad. That's a human job that we want them to do, and they're spending most of their time not doing it. How can we fix that? How can we flip it where they get to spend 80% of the time talking to people and 30% of the time doing the admins, the meetings, the documentations, the follow-up stuff, right? The third thing about human first is I think we have to do the work. I see way too many entrepreneurs. I'm going to say something harsh here. I don't know that who's listening to this, so I'm not talking about you specifically, but I see a large portion of entrepreneurs who want to outsource their success. They want, especially in sales, will somebody make this cold call for me? Will somebody do this marketing? Will somebody post a social media post so I don't have to look embarrassed? Can I set up an AI automation to handle all the customer calls so that I don't have to? And I get it. That's kind of the point of scaling a business, is to make yourself irrelevant and to find people or processes to do that. But there's no shortcuts. You can't shortcut your success. So the human first part of this is you have to do the work first of what do you stand for? What's your brand? What is really separates your company from others? And do that hard part first. And then think about how AI adds to that value proposition versus taking what is really special about your business and automating that and making it artificial is a terrible idea.
Yeah, and I love the way you draw that out. First of all, the analogy is great because I think anybody that's seen Iron Man or knows, anything about the superhero, um, gets that instantly, like what you're talking about. Okay, so yeah, it's amplifying your ability to do other things, and it's giving you, but you're still controlling it, right? So it's still ultimately your voice, your authenticity. It's still you at the core. And I think, to your other point, I see this all the time. One of the things I do is I coach lots of entrepreneurs, and one of the things that I see is it goes one way or the other. A lot of them say, "Okay, well, they're afraid." They don't use this terminology, but they're afraid to delegate or give anything away or use tools or whatever because they're used to rolling up the sleeves and doing it. So for
Right.
them, you have to explain to them, well, you're one person. So no matter how much of a work ethic you have, no matter how many hours a day you're willing to put in, you're capped at your growth at what you are personally physically capable of. And it's very difficult to scale a business that way. It's also very difficult to sustain a business that way because if something happens to you or you want to take a vacation, your business shuts down. The other side of it is exactly what you said. Well, now that I've taken the plunge and I've decided I'm going to use AI or I'm going to get some delegation help, I want to just dump everything, sit back, and you guys run the business for me and let me know how it's going.
Right. I'm going to make
And
money while I sleep, man. Yeah.
yeah. Like you've been watching too many commercials, too many VSLs. Like that's not exactly how it works, right? I'm not suggesting you can't do things that will automate and that will help you do it, but right, you have to have the systems in place that work in first, and then you can amplify them and you can accelerate them using these other kinds of tools. So I think those are great distinctions. Definitely appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's really important for people to understand that. So I want to ask you about the differences in businesses because we've talked a little bit about this, but we often, when we think about business as a general idea, we sort of lump all businesses together, right? So, oh, how could this help business or how could, but the reality of it is a business that is, as you said, $1 million or under is going to have a completely different framework and dynamic for the way that they operate than a business that's 100 million or 500 million or $1 billion business because it has to in order to be able to get
Yeah.
there. So they're going to size and scale completely differently. So I know you've worked with big international brands like Uber, the Kansas City Chiefs. What are small businesses doing that's wrong when they say, look, I want to do what these guys are doing and I want to be able to leverage that, but I'm trying to mimic it and it's just not working?
I think there are three things here that I've kind of put into my framework and thinking when I talk to businesses like that. The first one we've already hinted at, which is you got to find this scalable story that works. And so I get a lot of startups, right? You're experimenting, you might have to pivot, you don't really know who your customer is yet. In all of those cases, I just say do more. I think it's activity. You're going to find it. I also find that entrepreneurs sometimes have a tendency to overthink it and get too cute about it. So just like you said with the other one, half the entrepreneurs will be too small. They're like, I'm going to hyper niche. I'm just solving this one problem. And you're like, yeah, but everybody's asking you for this thing over here. And they're like, nope, I do this. And you're like, oh, okay, but you got 10 orders over here if you want it. Nope. Okay. The other one are like, I'm going to be everything to everybody. I'm just going to chase every shiny object, purple squirrel. Today, somebody asked me for ABC product. I'm going to spin it up and sell it. Or I'm going to sell it before I even make it. And they're going to go all over the place. So I think getting really clear about what your zone of genius is and what fits your world and what doesn't. And you can use AI to, like I said, analyze that. I talk about the concentrated orange juice analogy here, which is AI is really great at taking a massive amount of information and data and boiling it down to like the essentials, because it reads, it looks for patterns and scripts, and it can handle more information than humans do, especially random information. So what I find entrepreneurs do is they take that one example of, well, that one time that one thing happened and that worked, so that must be my business model, or we got this one customer complaint, now we have to change everything. Well, it might have just been a bad customer. It wasn't the right fit. You should have let them go. So AI, I think, can look unemotionally at a lot of opportunities and things and whittle it down to what really makes you different and what your story is. But then the other side of that is you have to find a story that stretches, that if I use AI or other people, that when I water it down, it's still good. So I find that a lot of times when it's like founder led sales and they hire their first salesperson, that person's not as good as the founder, right? They don't have the same amount of passion. They don't have the same conviction in their talk tracks. They don't have the same polish or charisma. And it just gets watered down a little bit, which is to be expected. But if we don't start with something really strong, if we're wishy washy and don't do this work first, when we water that down, it becomes ineffective. It's basically nobody's getting any idea of what flavor of business we're in. So the first one I would say is figure out what this meat of it, the scalable story is. Then look at putting AI and systems into place to automate parts that are easily automatable or things that would save you time or are repeatable habits. And so I think about scalable, for me in my world, marketing systems where I know every day I'm going to need a social media post. I know every week I need a blog or an email. I know that on a regular basis I need like case studies, white papers, lead generation offers. How can I create a system and a calendar and kind of a repeatable drumbeat that is just sort of that required content of being in business, or these required steps of customer delivery or other things if you're not thinking about marketing? And then try to free yourself up to do the inspired stuff. So if I can automate all that required things, then I have the time to think of like, what's this next crazy big swing, or what would make this campaign really funny or interesting or valuable? What's going to be our big Black Friday promotion? Because I'm not worried about what am I going to post on social media today, and I don't have any plan whatsoever. So especially for small people, it's just get the bases covered so that you can go do the work you got to do. And right now, you don't need great inspired stuff. You just need people to know that you exist and you're still in business because you haven't posted on Facebook or your blog in 6 months, and people don't know if you're even still doing this. I think that's a big difference. And then the third part for me comes into finding magic in like the human side of stuff. So I was kind of getting there with inspired content, but when I think back about the human first stuff, is getting back to saying no, qualification, disqualification, and making sure that we're not sanding off our edges that make us interesting, right? If you workshop enough stuff, I found this in radio. This is a great analogy for this one, that we would test songs. So we would get an audience of 1,000 people and we'd play them songs that we were thinking about playing on the radio and have them rate them from like 1 to 10. Guess what happens? The songs that score the best are the ones that are in the middle, that nobody likes and nobody really hates. It's kind of bland elevator music because nobody rated them poorly. And so I think if you're doing your business that same way, you're going to have trouble. So I would work with setting up your systems or your AI to remind you every day of like why you're doing this, what's interesting about it, and what your edge is, so that you don't lose that over the competition.
Yeah, you made a couple of really important points. I think one is, especially for small business, if you want to be able to grow, the importance of having systems and processes in place if you don't have that drumbeat, if you don't have that cadence and a repeatable way to do things, you will get swallowed up by the sheer magnitude of stuff that's got to be done.
Yeah.
And it becomes overwhelming. And so it's hard enough when you have systems in place, but if you don't even have them, the consistency level, the number one challenge from social media that I get from entrepreneurs is how can I stay consistent? I can't seem to
Yeah.
get like I do a really good job. I create a few good posts, I post them, and then it's 2 weeks before I can do any more because I'm and so it's all about systems and processes there, which I think is super important. The other
You know
part
what
of it
I'll
that
add?
yeah,
One more there, real quick, that I forgot to mention is tying it together into a plan too. So a lot of people will make stuff, or they go, "Oh, I'm posting every day," but there's never a call to action to anything else, or it doesn't drive to business. And so I see with a lot of people that are new, or I would just at least say like amateur marketers, that different than the big brands is the big brands know they need an ROI. This needs to drive leads. There needs to be a call to action. It needs to hook people. There's certain kind of frameworks and a marketing plan that goes, okay, this is what people who are unaware of us need to see and hear. These are people that are aware of a problem and shopping. And these are the people that are qualified buyers right now in the sales process, bottom of the funnel, that we need to pay special attention to. And I think small businesses miss that when they set up the system too, is they're just covering the bases and they're not tying these random acts of marketing into a plan.
yeah. So exactly the thing that I was going to say on top of that
Mhm.
is being able to step back and look at things strategically. It's not hard in business to stay busy. You could stay busy. That doesn't, you could even stay productive. That doesn't make what you're doing effective. And part of that is the messaging. Part of that is the thread that runs through it strategically, where
Yeah.
you're trying to carve out your niche in the market and share with people who you are. And I think we can get so caught up in production and getting stuff done that we don't have an opportunity to step back and look for strategic opportunities, um, congruency in the messaging and the things that we're doing, and all those other kinds of things. And I think that that is, super important as well, and oftentimes a pitfall. And to your point about just putting stuff out to put it out, I was talking to somebody whose specialty is social media marketing, and he said the biggest mistake that he sees that people make when they're making content is they make the content for themselves. They don't make it for their audience. And he goes, as soon as
Right.
you make it for yourself, great. You'll be happy to see yourself on, on your computer and on your feed and stuff like that. But nobody else cares, right? If it isn't content that benefits them, if it doesn't have speak to them about some pain point or some value or something else, at the end of the day, and I try to remind entrepreneurs and business people this all the time. At the end of the day, what business is, real simple, is about the exchange of value. If you have something that I think is more valuable than the money I've got in my pocket that you're asking for it, I will give it to you. And if you don't, then I won't. And
Right.
the other point you made alongside of that, which I think is really vital, and I think a lot of small businesses in particular miss this, is that there are people at different phases of the buying journey. So the same marketing, the same methods that work for one group don't work for another. I'll have somebody say to me, well, I don't understand. Like, I've got this workshop that I'm trying to promote. And when I mail it to my list, I get some people to sign up. And then when I run ads, nobody's signing up. I said, well, you have warm traffic. They already know you. They're familiar with you. They know, like, and trust you. So when you make them an offer, they're going to convert on that. You have an audience that doesn't know who you are. They need to do some research. They need to be brought along. They need to be coddled a little bit. They got to get to a point where they feel, and we've sort of, I think sometimes we overlook the importance of that journey because it's so accessible and easy to reach people. The perception is it's also easy to sell them and convert them. But that's actually the opposite. I actually think it's gotten harder. It takes more contacts. There's more competition. There's more noise. There's more distractions. And so I think those are,
I'll add one
go
other
ahead. Yeah.
one, which is there's less trust. The faster we get with AI, the less human we get and the less trust there is. And so it's harder to get people to believe what you're saying if everybody else can fake it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true as well. And I think it's why it's sort of raised the importance of things like the social proof elements when you have other people talking about what you're doing. And I tell people all the time too, just because you're posting on social media and you're not getting direct traffic and sales from that doesn't mean it isn't working. You have to get out there enough to build that awareness. People need to see you enough times before they get to a point where they've developed any kind of interest in what you're actually talking about. And so there's value in it, even if you're not generating. I made a post, I made a sale. Like it is always going to work that way, but that's okay.
I
So
always use the analogy of getting married on the first date, right?
I
What
love
we're
that.
what we're trying to do is get enough attention to get a phone number or a
Yeah.
follow, and then if we get enough, um, likability on the phone, we can get a date and or a sales appointment, and then if the first sales appointment goes great, we can get a second one, and then eventually, somewhere down the line, they become lifelong customers of ours. But you can't go around the bar asking people to get married. It doesn't work that
No, not unless you're on a reality show anyway, right?
way.
So,
That's right.
so with human first AI marketing, obviously want to dig into this a little bit more as well. Um, why do you believe that's the most important way for people to proceed in terms of if I were building a business today and I was like, okay, I'm going to use AI and I want the most effective way to do it. Why do you think, or what are the elements of it that you think make it work so well?
A lot of the stuff we've been talking about, right? Which is, as of today, at the end of 2025, our buyers are still humans. So if we don't put the humans first, our marketing is kind of worthless. And we've seen that in the other um, technological revolutions too, like with SEO on websites. And if you start putting content for robots, then great, you might rank higher and get traffic, but then humans visit it and they go, what is this gobbledygook? I don't know what this is. And they leave and they don't buy. Same thing with social media. You can do some clickbaity things to get a bunch of followers, or you can buy robot followers. And there's server farms in India that'll set you up with 100,000 followers on
Yes, there
LinkedIn
are.
if you want it. But nobody is going to buy from you and nobody clicks on your post because they're not real humans. So I think that's obviously answer number one for me. But the other part of this, I think, is the scalability. We've also seen with these other revolutions that, like, when the telephone came out, we got telemarketers. When email came out, we get spam. When television came out, we get advertisements crammed in there. And so we tend to, as greedy, impatient entrepreneurs, burn channels for ourselves. And if we don't take this human first approach, we're going to burn the AI channel too. And it becomes this arms race of like, we create, some sort of robot to go scrape emails and send them. And then somebody has to create a robot or an AI agent to block all of those spam emails. And then there's another hack and then another hack. And you see these people, especially on social media all of the time, right? Where there's a new algorithm. This time it's vertical video and all you got to do. And I love Gary Vee, but man, he is doing this. That's his whole life. And I think I would be exhausted if I chased
Yeah.
shortcuts every 90 days, right?
He looks exhausted to me. I met
Yeah,
him younger and he was, vibrant. He's always been high energy, but I feel like he's actually doing too much. I think he's working too hard.
I
And
agree.
I
Good for
like
him. He's the best at the
yeah,
world at it. It's
yeah,
made
it's
him
awesome.
millions of dollars, more
Yep.
money than I have. So great. I think the other thing people miss is that that works just enough for people to keep doing it. And it's kind of like a multi level marketing scam where it works for the first person, but it doesn't work for the 10,000th person to do that. So the first person to do the Nigerian prince, email scam probably stole millions of dollars. But if you're trying to do that 30 years later, that same opportunity is not there for you. Google's put spam blockers in. Everybody knows the trope. It's been announced on TV that this is a scam and everything else. And I think that happens with all of those other shortcuts in sales and marketing. So, what we need to do is roll back to human first psychology. And we know that psychology is largely unchanged. That people want to know, like, and trust you to do business with you. They got to know who you are. They got to have some affinity or problem you can solve. They got to have a budget to solve it. They got to have some sort of decision making authority. And trust is built up through credibility and reliability and authenticity and your expertise over time. So it is a completely different um, model. And I think there are a lot of different tactics you can take, or you could apply AI tools to those based on the different businesses that you're in. So you mentioned if I'm selling a retail product, maybe I want social proof and I want reviews and I want a lot of information on the website. If I'm selling a large B2B enterprise solution that's an intangible professional services contract, like becoming their corporate attorney, they're probably not going to click on a link. They probably don't care what the case study says necessarily. They're looking for a much higher level of trust. And so we need to really think about what strategies make sense and we would feel good about if we were the buyer.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's super important. So if someone's just getting started and they're like, okay, I'm going to take this leap, I'm going to get into AI. What's the first or one of the first high impact steps that they can take to use it in a way that's going to help them?
We could go with the obvious one here, which is get on one of the pro platforms. So, kind of, I think we're at a point now where they're getting close enough. I'm still a ChatGPT guy, so ChatGPT Pro is $20 a month. That's less than like a trip to Starbucks these days. You can do that. And it's going to start learning about you, and you're going to start learning about it. And questions you can ask it. And you get a virtual assistant, that you don't have to pay for. It's $20 a month. And all of a sudden you can have somebody write your emails, listen to your calls. You can upload the transcripts of stuff and say, what did I miss? What did I mess up? How could you help me customize my pitch to this buyer based on what we talked about? All kinds of cool things once you just start using a generative AI tool. I think that's a big one. Um, Outside of that, and I didn't finish the thought there either. Of Claude is very good. Gemini is also very good. Grok is a little off the rails, and I think they built it that way. It's trained on Twitter data, so you can tell how opinionated and truthful and stuff it is. But it does some cool things. So whatever system you're in, if you're a Google house, great, go with Gemini. If you're already on Microsoft 365, turn on Copilot. Whatever it is, if you're agnostic, go with ChatGPT. If you're writing code, go for Claude. But get into one of those and start collecting your data and start using the tool. Because step number two, I think that people are missing is the most valuable asset I believe you have in your business now is human to human conversations. And a lot of people are still not recording them, but I try to record everything, not in a intrusive privacy way, but if it's a business conversation, I'm going to turn on the Zoom AI note taker, or I'm going to get the transcript from this call for whatever platform we're in. And I'm going to start using that data. Think about ways that I can do it, because even if it's a customer conversation, like if you have a business that has internal customer calls, you need to be recording all of those so that you know what the frequently asked questions are, you know what problems they're trying to solve, you know which products are selling, which ones are not selling, which salespeople are selling, which ones are not selling. All of a sudden, with AI and the future of the market now, I believe is with all the artificial content, real human conversations is the gold of where your business can go and where you're gonna find the answers that are gonna separate you from the competition. Does that make sense, Brett?
Total sense. And I love that idea. I mean, I think one of the struggles people have is understanding what the capabilities are. They know that AI is cool and it can do these neat things, and they've seen images created from it. I made this cool tiger logo, and then I was able to animate it with another one where it roars.
Yeah.
It's like super cool, right? But you're sort of thinking about, okay, but as a business, how do I? And so I think giving those practical examples is really powerful, because I don't think a lot of people think about that. Hey, what if I took a sales call took the transcript of that, fed it in, and said, "Hey, what opportunities did I miss? Where did I go wrong in this call? Like, what could I have done better?" You keep sharpening your own knife, so you keep getting better at what you're doing. And I think that's a really powerful way to use it. I love to use it for ideation, and I also love to use it for structure and
Yeah.
synthesis. I mean, obviously taking large amounts of stuff,
Synthesis. Yeah.
but I love structure as well, because if I say, give me an outline for this, right, it will do it in a way where I've made outlines before and then realized after I got partially the way through it, ah, I should have put this bullet up there and I didn't think about that one. And then I got to rework some of this stuff. With AI, I can look at it and I might agree or disagree with it, but I've already got the outline set. So now I can just edit it as I choose. And so there are a lot of practical uses.
Love
I'm
that. Can
just
I give
not
you a
sure that,
crazy one? Since this is
yeah,
the optYOUmize podcast, what
yeah,
I did was I've spent the last 15 years in professional development. I uploaded about uh, I think 25 different documents of my DISC profile, my Myers-Briggs, my Strengths Finder, my Enneagram, like all of these personality profiles and reports, my sales aptitude test, my management and leadership scorecard, and all of these things. And I uploaded them to a custom GPT and said, "Tell me about myself," and then I can start asking questions of what things will I do that will be a hazard to my business? What are my strengths that I should lean on to grow Avenue 9? If I was going to make a first hire, what type of person should I hire in order to fill the gaps that I don't like doing? And all of a sudden, it has all of the information and context to give me those answers better than I could do it myself, because I'm going to be biased if
yeah.
you ask me. And so it was a really cool exercise. I learned a ton. If you want to have some guts, ask it to roast you too, and it will be funny and painful and all kinds of things. I did that when I came out with my Playful Humans book over here. I uploaded the book transcript and I said, if you were going to write a terrible book review, what would you say? What will the critics of this book say? And it loaded up a page full of stuff, and I had to close it for a second. I was like, wait, am I mentally prepared to read this answer? And I walked away for an hour, and I came back and I was like, yes, I want to see this, because I want to be prepared when this goes out to the world and I market it. If I get a bad review, I want to know ahead of time how I'm going to respond. And I read it and I thought all the stuff were great. They were fair comments. I was like, if you said these things, this book was not for you. So I'm comfortable with this negative feedback. And it really made me a lot more confident in the book launch.
That's wild. All of those applications are wild, but super valuable. I mean, that's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think, you know, anytime that we could do some sort of introspection and do it in a way that's more analytical than personal, because we all know the drill, right? Oh, ask somebody who really knows you and loves you, like, but you don't want to hear that from them, and they don't want to say it to you because
Well,
they're
the
not going
beauty
to
part
say
is
it
you
to
can
you.
ask AI to do either way. So I said the roast one because I was challenging everybody, but I've also said be gentle. I've been triggered by this client conversation. Be gentle. Give me a pep talk and tell me. So you can go the
Awesome.
other way too if you need to hear it, and just be
I love
balanced
that.
with
I
it.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great ways to use it that I hadn't thought of. So now you got me intrigued. The gears are turning. I'm starting to think, okay, what kind of content do I have? I can feed some stuff in there, because I actually have a lot of content over the years as well, and I've done
Yeah.
some of those, like those tests and batteries of things like that as well. So I'm curious. I'll have to
With
check
your
that out.
content, I did the same thing with the podcast. So I uploaded all of those to a Google Notebook and then did a summary of them. But I uploaded my writing, my different books, and a lot of blogs, and had to do some deep research on my writing to learn my tone of voice. And then I asked it to write custom GPT instructions for the AI to be able to write more like me based on what it analyzed for my writing. And then so again, it kind of synthesized this down, got to the concentrated orange juice, and like, here's what a Mike Montague writing sample looks like. And it allows me to repurpose that in my other marketing and writing. So now I can just say, write this like me, and it will rewrite it with all the characteristics and humor and catchphrases that I have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Those are great applications. I'm gonna have to dig in and start getting a little more creative about how I'm using it, because I have some good applications for it where it's really helpful for me. but I hadn't really thought of those, and I think that that's really powerful. So, all right, we've talked a lot about AI, we talked a lot about business, but I gotta tap into your other side too. I know you're a radio DJ, you're a game show host too. What was that like?
Super fun. There was two lessons that I share from this. One is I told you earlier, like when I was in fifth grade, I wanted to be on the radio, and I always thought this was a cool job. And when I was thinking about going to college for computer science, I was like, I don't want to be a nerd. I don't want to be stuck in a room by myself behind a computer all day. I want to be cool. I want to be on the radio. And I did. I worked my way all the way up to have my own show on the top 40 radio station in Kansas City. I was Romeo on Mix 93.3 playing music from retro to right now. And it was uh, a room by myself behind a computer telling the funniest joke I'd ever heard of, and nobody laughed. But it paid a quarter of what computer programmers make and stuff. So I think there's a bunch of lessons there. One of them for young people is you're going to have 9 different careers throughout the rest of your life, or 9 different jobs in your career. And 7 of those have not been invented yet. So podcasting wasn't a thing when I wanted to
Right.
be on the radio in fifth grade in 19 whatever 90 something, in the 1900s, in the late 1900s. Podcasting was not a thing. The other thing I would say is I love performing because it puts me into a flow state. So when we're having this conversation, or I'm on stage in front of thousands of people, or I'm hosting a game show, I'm making people laugh, it gives me all the good feelings of being present, being my best self. I'm not um, putting on an act unless I'm putting on an act. And I get to really kind of be my best full self, get emotionally and physically and spiritually engaged in the work. And that I find to me is really fun, and it helps level out all the energy. So I think, especially for entrepreneurs, we burn out because we don't fill all of those different buckets. So you got
Yeah.
to move your body, you got to have some time to think, you got to have time to pause, and you got to have time to go play and relax and let go of the stress and just not even think about what that, either a big corporate job is, or that big heavy bill you got to pay, or problem with your business. You got to just go have some fun. For me, participate in a game show, or do some karaoke, or something, and just not think about it for a while is really valuable to my mental health.
Yeah, I think that that's great advice. I'll tell you, that's why I love podcasting. I time just goes, and I'm so immersed because I just loved the opportunity to have somebody like you come on, talk with you. I mean, where else would I get this opportunity, right? If we met at a conference, we'd shake hands and might get a business card. And by the time I got home, I would be intimidated to reach out to you anyway because you wouldn't remember me. You know what I mean? Like, so the platform of being able to actually have in-depth conversations goes back to that authenticity, relationship building, which is at the core of all of this anyway. And I think that I've always loved it. I've always done it from a place of passion, not for any other real purpose, because I feel like I've spent a lot of those years behind the computer. I've been in software for 20 years, and a lot of it was creating software apps and promoting them. And I'm not a developer, but um, all of my colleagues and affiliates are all remote, and we might get together once, twice a year at a conference. But other than that, I don't really see them, and so it's isolating. And that was one of the things I thought, geez, if I can help other entrepreneurs understand it's okay, it's normal. If you feel isolated and lonely sometimes, it can be
Hmm.
difficult. If you're the only one you know who's an entrepreneur because your family loves you, but they don't understand, it's a different animal than it is having a job. And I wanted to give a voice to all those people. I wanted to share what I knew, but I also wanted the opportunity selfishly to be able to connect with other people and have in-depth conversations and pick your brain about stuff because I get smarter every episode I do, which is a great little side benefit.
I agree with
So
all of that, and I will say it's another one of those collecting your human conversations assets, where over time you get this massive collection of people in your network, but content, and then one interview can feed your content for the rest of the month. You can create short clips from that. You can create blogs from that, emails, give you thoughts for other marketing content. You can turn them into white papers and case studies and all kinds of cool things. So I love podcasting because of all the things you said, and it gives me that routine and structure to make sure I'm connecting with other human beings, but also feeding the beast with all that required marketing content and conversations that we have to do too.
Absolutely. All right, I can't let you go before I ask you about the story about how you get fired live on stage by Billy Idol. So
Oh
you got
no,
to
I
share
have
that
to
story
take
with
this one
us.
out of the
You
bio
do.
because my girlfriend is outside the door and she's heard me tell the story way too many times. But um, I was on stage opening for Billy Idol when he came to Kansas City because his opening act got sick. They called the radio station looking for a somebody that could play music, retro music for a while. I was on the retro radio station and I played a song he didn't like. It was Casey and the Sunshine Band, Do a Little Dance, Make a Little Love, and Get Down Tonight. Um, I like playing that song because I liked making the joke not in that order. Save the making love for the end of the night, but feel free to do a little dance or get down. And just like the lights came down, the sound was off. I'm standing on stage in front of thousands of people. I look over to the side, and the manager does the cutthroat sign, like you're done. And I did not collect go, did not collect my $200, just slinked off the stage. But I love telling that story because that's the moment where I became bulletproof as a performer and an entertainer. Because once I did that, I knew that anything after that was going to be fine. Showing up on this podcast, I have nothing to be nervous about. I've already made it through that scenario. So for me, I do bring that up way too much because it's such a fun story and
It's a great
example of like
story.
putting yourself out there.
Yeah, it's a great story, and to your point, that's also the lesson you wanna take when you have that moment. You have the fear, if you're in that environment sometimes, of, "Well, what if something goes wrong? What if some" well, once it finally does, and you have to face it and you work through it, then you realize, "Okay, well, if I could do it this time, no big deal, I'll survive it next time too." And so that is the great takeaway. You definitely framed it the right way, so that way, instead of it crushing your confidence, it builds it up because you say, you know what, if I can make it through that, throw whatever you want at me. I'm not gonna be nervous or intimidated by it. So very cool.
Uh, 100%. I think that goes for entrepreneurs too, is like, don't be afraid to take the big swings. All the success that I've had in my career, the big moments. I opened for Frankie Valley later in front of like 10,000 people. It was a great success. I broadcast with the Kansas City Chiefs to over 100,000 people and put the first time ever they broadcast the game on the internet. So we had people listening from Japan and Kansas City servicemen stationed overseas listening and
Awesome.
stuff. It was incredible, really cool moment. Big stages, getting the books published by LinkedIn. All of those were because I just had the guts to volunteer and be the one to go out there and know that, like, hey, if it doesn't work, that's all right. I took a swing, and
Yeah.
most of them worked out well. Even though
You
if I
gotta
am
do
I
that.
am still getting trolled. My girlfriend sent me the DM of Billy Idol in a rock star
Of
pose because she
course.
heard it
Of
again.
course.
But
Of course you're
um,
gonna get it.
we're gonna have to work out a
Well,
drinking game for my friends and anybody that listens to this. If anytime I say Billy Idol, you got to take a drink.
that's awesome. But yeah, and I think that is the important thing, right? You're only going to regret the stuff, when you don't take the risk, and then you're going to wonder, geez, what if I had done that? Maybe things would have turned out differently. So I think in general, it's a great message for entrepreneurs in particular. We're risk takers by nature, and we have to be able to lean into that. So, all right. So where can people find you, find your products, services, and connect with you?
Well, the good news is I'm pretty easy to find because I'm in internet marketing. So if you search for Mike Montague on LinkedIn is my preferred channel of communication there. Or if you look for Avenue 9, it's avenue9.com or the Human First AI Marketing Podcast. Anywhere you're listening or watching this would be a great place to start. And I'd love to connect if I can help at all or you got a question, just reach out. I love to share my knowledge and best practices that I've collected from thousands of interviews with other business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people trying to make stuff happen out there.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right. I have one last question. I'd love to know your perspective on what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Ooh, I didn't prepare this one. My number one tip, I've probably already shared. So I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to say the number one tip is find something that gives you energy and then find the people that are looking for that. So, one of my favorite quotes of all time was a Supreme Court justice named Howard Thurman. He said, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." And I kind of hinted at it earlier. The business application of that is selling your stuff that you love to do to people that have a problem you can solve, the money to solve it, and the decision making authority to say yes is not cheating. That's the way business should be. So all the other stuff is distractions.
Amazing. All right. Thanks for that. All right. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you again, Mike, so much for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit avenue9.com/tools for a list of his top 9 AI marketing tools that he uses every day. You can check them out for free and even ask him how he uses them. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want for your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.